Okay.
Okay.
they can Zoom hear me. If you can get something in chat. I think we're good.
Like they heard John. Fix it then. So the Zoom people can hear us now. All right. Thank you for confirming. I will back over. We called the meeting to order at 1:21 p.m. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm AJ Tischletter, the president of the Sudden Valley. And it's my sincere pleasure to welcome you to this year's annual general meeting of the Sudden Valley Community Association's first ever hybrid general meeting in which members can participate in person and virtually. Sorry for the delay on figuring out the sound issue, but hopefully that's figured out. Both in-person and virtual attendance is being utilized for the members who wish to participate. Both members attending in person and virtually by joining the webinar will be considered as present for determining the quorum. I'd like to remind everyone attending in person that we are working within the COVID guidelines, so we're asking to wear a mask while inside the barn. So today I'll be serving as the presiding officer to allow us as the members to do the work of the annual meeting. I'd like to introduce our parliamentarian, John Berg. This is John's first year as the association's parliamentarian. And now I'm going to go into a couple procedures for the meeting. 12th edition of Robert's Rules of Order, newly revised, shall govern this meeting in all parliamentary situations that are not provided for in the laws or the charter or the bylaws. For those members attending virtually and wish to speak will indicate their desire to speak by using the raised hand symbol on the participants page and wait until recognized by the presiding officer and state their membership identification, name, and address for division and lot. If a member wishes to call for a parliamentary inquiry, point of order, appeal a ruling, or ask a question for information, please state the type of procedure being called for, either by approaching the microphone over here if present at the meeting, or for Zoom, use the Q&A section of the Zoom and we'll bring you into the meeting to present your request. Members will be entitled to speak up to 2 times on any debatable issue, and each time we ask that you endeavor to speak no longer than 3 minutes. The president will let speakers know when their 3 minutes are up. Speak a second time on the same issue, a member must wait until those who wish to speak on it for the first time have done so. We'll also make every effort to try to alternate between participants on Zoom and in person. Speaking for longer than 3 minutes or for a third time will require permission from the assembly. Thank you. These are the rules that I, as the presiding officer, will hold CCC during the meeting. If you have watched any of the board meetings this year, you will have heard this board reference land acknowledgement and anti-racism statement. We recognize stewardship as a shared commitment of all who reside within Sudden Valley, and we strive for respectful relationships with all our neighbors inside and outside of Sudden Valley. Our land acknowledgement and anti-racism statement are expression of our search for collective healing, true reconciliation, and desire to honor this beautiful land. I want to thank all our staff for all they've done to make today successful. We have seen firsthand their exceptional response to ever-changing circumstances during the past year. And on behalf of the board, we are incredibly grateful for all the support and trust you have shown us this year as we continue our efforts to build a foundation for stable and sustainable operations of our community. I would also like to recognize my fellow board members who are present at the meeting. Joshua Bowman over here, Jim Harris, treasurer, Brian Cope, Sonia Volt, and Sam Shahan are here. Joel Dobbins is here. He had to step out for a minute. Andy Glover is on the Zoom meeting participating. And Linda Bradley, our NNE chair, along with our NNE committee members, Nancy Allinak, Steve Workman, and Michael Wadsworth are also in the building supporting the effort of the AGM today. And I thank everyone for all of their efforts to make today happen. Thank you to all the board directors for their service this year and to the N&E committee members for assisting with the election. We especially want to recognize and thank the outgoing board members, Joel Dobbins, Andy Glover, and Linda Bradley. This time, Steffi Jones, our secretary, was not able to make it today. So does anyone have any objections to Tim Harris being appointed as the secretary pro tem? All right, hearing no objections. We'll decide if that's necessary for him. I will pass it over for the forum.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for your presence. The notice of the annual meeting addressed to all members at the address. Sorry, let me start over. The notice of the annual meeting addressed to all members at the address on record at the association administration office was placed in the mail at least 30 days before the meeting, as required by the bylaw. Secretary is in receipt of the USPS report of the mailing. We are here at 4:09.
Moving on to the approval of the 2020 AGM minutes. Minutes of the 2020 annual meeting have been reviewed by the board and made available on the website. Are there any corrections that anyone? Hearing none, the minutes are approved as they're presented on the this year, due to the continuing COVID pandemic, the association is having its balloting handled by a third-party election vendor, Unilect Election Services. They're handling the printing, mailing, registration, and counting of the ballots. Video of the counting process will be available to membership since observers could not be present. The ballots will be scanned with a high-speed scanner and results then given to the AGM. Thank you to the community for your support in accepting this third-party process. All those voting by mail, drop-off, and in person should have submitted their ballots, unless you're voting from the floor at this meeting by special ballot obtained during this morning. Anyone voting from the floor may do so, and members of the N&E committee will collect those 4 ballots a little bit once. So we have 4 director positions open for 3-year terms and 1 position for a 1-year. There are 3 candidates that have applied for the board this year. Taimee Van Der Polder, Sam Shahan, and Sonia Volt. Thank you to all of you for volunteering to be on the board. The 4th board vacancy will need to be filled by appointment by the 2022 board to serve until the next AGM according to the procedures and the bylaws. And we'll move forward with that process. There were no candidates for the N&E committee this year. The committee will be soliciting interested candidates to serve on the 2022 committee. If you're interested in serving, please fill out an application. The committee will be appointing 2 committee members to serve for the 2022 calendar year. There are also no candidates for the Architectural Control Committee. This committee will be soliciting interested candidates to serve as well. If you're interested in serving, please fill out an application. The committee will be appointing 8 committee members to serve for the 2022. All right, moving on to our business of the association. The new business to come before the assembly consists of 6 measures, 1 financial and 5 bylaw amendments. You received the explanation of each of the measures in your elections packet. According to our rules, discussion must be germane to the measure itself. And the chair requests that after you identify yourself, and you begin with stating whether you are for or against the measure. So we will move to the first measure, which is the budget. Measure number 1 is shall the Sun Valley Community Association's 2022 annual consolidated budget, which provides for assessment revenue of $4,993,739 and non-assessment revenue of $1,438,340 for a total combined assessment and non-assessment revenue of $6,432,079 to approve or reject it. Chair calls upon Kim Harris, the treasurer, to present the budget amendment.
Hello again, everyone. So the president just grabbed the total combined amount of the budget. And this budget is based on a 93% collection rate. Our current collection rate as of September 30th, 2021 is 95.6%. This time last year, our collection rate was 94.5%. Some highlights for the budget that are noteworthy for everyone to acknowledge is there will be no dues increase. Dues remain the same at $144.31 per month for developed lots and $134.67 per month for undeveloped lots. Our dues are based on 2,912 dues payers, which represents the 93% collection for 3,131 lots. How do your dues get allocated once they're collected? They're split into 5 ways. Operations monthly dues amounts below, presented on developed lot basis. So when you pay your dues, 40% of them per household will go to operations for amenities and HOA services. 8% per household from total lots 2022 goes towards operations, recreational assessment for our parks, schools, and our rec center. 25% per household will go to the capital repair and replacement fund for major repairs, replacement, and restoration of our common areas. 26% per household will go to the capital road, ditches, and culvert repairs for major roads, ditches, and culvert work. 1% per household will go to the capital mailbox fund for anticipated expenses for cluster mailboxes and parcel mailboxes. How do your combined operations and operations rec special assessment fees get spent? 12% go on common costs. Common costs include property taxes, insurance, reviews, our legal fees, and more. 22% of your operation dues go on administration, 17% on maintenance, 14% on accounting, 13% on security and our architectural control committee. 6% of those go on utilities, 18% go on recreation, parks, and pools, and 0% at this time for the 2022 budget will go for marina and golf and church day. And I will talk more about the process of how the budget committee came up with this budget this year. And I will discuss that later in the meeting when I deliver the 2021 Treasurer and Finance Committee report. Thank you.
Kim. All right. Is there any discussion on the budget measure? In Zoom, you can raise your hand. Raise hand. Don will pull you in. If you're in person, you can step up to the podium. Please remember that we're limiting comments to 3 minutes for all of these.
Go ahead and bring Lou. Jamie, I brought you in. Go ahead and unmute.
I'm sorry, that was an accident.
All right. Well, I'm not seeing any discussion on the budget ballot measure, so we will move on to the bylaw amendments. We'll go through these one by one. On each one individually. So the first bylaw amendment on the ballot is measure number 2. Now, Article 2, Section 2 be amended to include the following language to prevent unnecessary, unenforceable special meetings. President shall not be obligated to call an SPM if all of the matters to be submitted to the membership for a vote would violate applicable law if approved by the member. Is there any discussion on measure number 2?
Hi, Sonia Vold, Vision 30, Lot 76. Hi, so this is actually not a discussion. I just wanted to comment on this because there's been some misunderstanding throughout the community regarding this particular measure, where some people misunderstand it to say that this is going to prevent member petitions, or that somehow this is an act to prevent members from being able to put a petition forward to raise dues or create capital dues through petition. Reality is that is actually not legal to do in the first place. That is not what this says, because the law already takes care of that. 6490-525 does not allow a member petition to increase our dues under any circumstances. Only the board can do that. That's not what this is. What this is to save us money so that if a member does petition to increase dues for whatever reason, or create a special assessment, just because the way our bylaws are written, the president is obligated to accept that petition if it has 10% of the membership signature. We're obligated then through our bylaws to have an SGM. After it's completed, then it's called invalid. So this is just to take that unnecessary step out of there. It's not subjective. The board doesn't get to decide if it's an illegal petition or not. If there's a question about that, the attorney will make that decision. So I kind of wanted to make that really clear because I've heard that a few times, but members cannot put forward a petition. It is literally against Washington state law to increase our dues. There you go. Thank you.
Sonia? Is there anyone else who'd like to speak? All right, seeing none on Zoom and no other people approaching the podium, we'll move on to measure 3. This is a bylaw amendment as well. Shall Article 3 C, Section 18 be amended to replace association purposes with proper purpose? Is there any discussion on this bylaw amendment? All right, I am seeing none on Zoom or anyone approaching that one. Measure 4 is shall bylaw Article 3, Section 19A, triple I, special assessment purpose be amended to remove other association. Is there any discussion on this matter? Yep, I can repeat that. Measure 4 is shall bylaw Article 3, Section 19A, triple I, special assessment purpose be amended to remove other association purpose. One person on this matter.
Hi, Chris Weitzel, 24 Summit Place. What other matters would there be, potentially? Sorry? Well, just, I want to know what that means. There you go.
So basically, this is put into effect because when this was changed, and what that, it opened up the door to initially the only reasons that you could file a special assessment had to do with, it literally said, shall be for the purpose of paying the cost of any and in any loans related to capital improvements and repairs. When it was changed, that opens the door to that special assessment is an operational assessment. So this is to prevent special assessment operational expenses and to force boards to, because if you can't do that as a special assessment, the board will absolutely, the community do not tolerate not budgeting. So just to make sure that we go back to the way it was originally intended. Yeah, that's all. Okay. I just wanted to explain the reason I'm answering the question is because our committee created most of these measures except for the last one. And that's why I'm actually familiar with them, with that. So that's why I'm answering the question.
All right, do we have any further discussion on the matter? No more no hands on Zoom and no one else. Microphone. So move on to measure number 5 is now Article 3, Section 19A, 4(1)B be amended for clarity to accurately reflect the bylaw explanation intent by inserting the word assessment to describe the revenue used to calculate the special assessment limitations that were passed a couple of years ago. Bylaw limitations. Is there any discussion on this matter? All right, not seeing any hands on Zoom. And so we'll move on to, Zoom did not hear you very well. Zoom did not hear your answer. Want to repeat it? Right?
We just need to make sure we're speaking right into the mic.
Okay, Chris Weitzel had the question of what the statement is replacing for a special assessment. I can't remember the exact wording, but basically clarifying the language that shall the bylaw be changed to say a special assessment purpose be amended to remove other association purposes. The reason for that was is that it had originally read that special assessment shall be for the purpose of paying the cost of and any loans related to capital improvements and repair. It did say and other proper purposes. Proper is a legal term. It means related purposes. It has to be, so it did not open the door to operational special assessment. It was just a general term of what all you can do for capital assessment. But by changing those, that language to other association purposes, that's what allowed the recreation special assessment, which is an operational assessment, to occur. And so by doing this puts it back to the original intent of our bylaws in the way it really should be, is that we should never implement a special assessment because of lack of proper budgeting. Our operations should never depend on a special assessment. And so this is just to ensure that we have responsible budgeting and planning in the future. So did that work out? Everybody hear me? Any other questions? All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Sonia. I hope everyone was able to hear the explanation better this time on Zoom. So, loud and clear. Thanks, Andy. We'll move on to measure number 6. Shall Article 2, Section 7D be amended to allow all members to vote for directors, committee members, proposed budget items, and any other issues or items on an AGM or SGM ballot, regardless of standing? Is there any discussion on this matter? Microphone.
Yeah, I'm Carla Knight, lot 3-128. And it seems to me to be in good standing. That means you have to pay your dues, be current. And I think that's smart and wise, because if you're not current, then you're not contributing to the HOA. So you shouldn't have a say in it. That's what I believe.
Elizabeth Huthert, 8 Westbrook Court. When I first moved here, which was 21 years ago, there was a Canadian company that owned hundreds of lots and hadn't paid for years. If we allowed people or entities to vote who were not in good standing, we could have the same kind of disastrous situation again that we had back then. So that's why I think we wanted them, the voters, to be in good standing, and I think that should continue. Thank you.
Hi, Ann Cope, 52 Louis Drive. I'd like to share a personal story. When Brian and I moved here, it was a huge financial hardship. It was a huge financial hardship when Brian and I moved here. Our second summer here, we went 2 months without paying, got behind on our dues. Had we not been able to pay, we wouldn't have been able to vote. Of course, we paid the late fee. Punishing people for financial hardship is not a community that I want to be part of. Thank you.
Mr. President, there is a question in Q&A.
Yep. So one of the questions on the Q&A is, could you explain why this is necessary? How many extra votes would this be? I'm not 100% certain how many extra votes this would be, but the entity committee proposed this bylaw amendment And the thought behind it is to make us in line with any other election for state, federal, local. There is no requirement to be current in your payment of taxes to those entities to be able to vote in those elections. And taking away the ability to vote for your representatives when you are not current was something that they wanted to try to address. Over to Sonia.
Hey, me again. I did not write this. Our committee didn't do this. As AJ said, this came from the NNE committee put forward. The additional element of that had to do with because of Iowa, and because the voting language changed, it's almost impossible for the membership. And by the way, I actually I understand what you're saying. You know, I identify with that too. And so I want to be really clear. I kind of see both sides of this too. But the reasoning is that basically, if you are not a member in good standing, you can only vote for the budget. But now that you really don't have a say in the budget because of Iowa, it's impossible for this community to defeat a budget that's put forward because of the way Iowa is written. So really the only way that the membership can have a voice truly is to vote for their director and the board. So that's the intent behind it, is to ensure that the membership has a voice, because unfortunately they don't really have it with the budget anymore. And so, but you do have it with who your representatives are. And it's really important. And that was the intent. That was, as AJ expanded on, but you know, it did have to do with ensuring that the membership's voice was heard.
Thank you, Sonia. I'm gonna hold up 1 sec, Kim. I'm gonna alternate. John, can you bring the Zoom raised hand over?
All right, bringing them over here. We've got them listed as without a church. Perhaps if we could have a name and address.
Hello, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, now we can hear you.
Well, I'm sorry. This is Rob Gibbs, 14 Far Summit Place. I think a previous Zoom meeting that I hosted is coming up in this manner. Would you like me to log off and come back in so it's more official as a resident, or can I continue with my comment?
Go ahead and continue, Rob.
Well, thank you. I just wanted to share my thoughts. I think that allowing people that are not members in good standing isn't really fair to the members who are in good standing. I do understand that and have a heart for those who might be having a financial situations preventing them to be current in their dues, but I don't think that voting in for directors and whatnot is fair to those who are in good standing. Also, this would be the first organization, whether it be an HOA, and I've been a member of other HOAs, or whether it be a social organization, anything that would allow to accept votes from those who are not in good standing. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob, for sharing your thoughts. All right, I'll move over to Kim. Microphone.
Kim Harris, speaking as a community member now, and Division 10, Lot 200. So I look at this initiative as an equity and an inclusive initiative, and I support it. I believe that in today's Seddon Valley, I don't believe that the majority of homeowners are corporations. I think they are individual homeowners. I think when you add a layer of COVID-19 and people's joblessness to the issues, there may be some people who are unemployed and maybe behind on their dues, but I don't agree that they should be silenced with respect to their vote. If we're looking at all of our fellow homeowners as neighbors and individual homes, I think this is a great initiative to allow them to have a voice rather than silencing people for financial reasons. I think this would be likened to a poll tax. When you look at our normal general society, people that are behind in their bills in society can still vote as community members. And I think we should be trying to parallel what we do in our society. We don't punish people in our society for being behind on their bills by telling them they can't vote in our other elections. And I don't think we should be doing it for our homeowners association here. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. Michael would like to speak. Go ahead, Michael.
My name is Michael Wadsworth, and I live at 5 Western Lane. I don't know my lot, whatever number it is. As a member of NNE, we brought this up to make it, I'm going to reiterate what everybody else has already said. One, corporations don't own a lot. We do have some people that own some lots that they're developing, but they're going to be sold probably privately, and I don't think you're going to have a major holding blocking stuff any longer here. Two, we need to be inclusive. We don't want to start, segregating people for different reasons, starting with their budget and their finances. Where's it go from there? Three, local elections, federal elections, and all that are open to everyone because you're a citizen. Here, you're a member, so you should be allowed to vote. And four, on a personal note, I'm 71 years old. I had my own business and a part-time job, and I'm getting Social Security. My part-time job and my own business have died because of COVID, so I'm living on Social Security. And by the grace of God, I'm current on my dues, but there are others that have health issues. Thank God I have good health, so I'm able to support my wife and I and stay in good standing. And I hate to have my vote taken away because of economics. We need to be open and fair in a community of people who are as diverse as we are today. And it's kind of ridiculous to hold the past out there and block people from having the right to vote. They paid what it took to get in here, which is a healthy sum of money, and they should be allowed to vote for everything because WCOA stole our vote, and we've been cheated enough right there in that. There's no way out of that I can see, because nobody wants to stand up and do what's right on it because we have had our vote taken away from. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Chris to speak at the podium next.
This isn't on the pass or not pass, okay? But it goes back to the history of where concerns came from. When the Canadian developer came here, he bought up all the remaining tax lots, must have had 300, and he went on a buying campaign and picked up another 100 or 2. So he was a power to have to deal with. We were, as a realtor, very concerned about what his plans were. He had overseas plans, like that. But the big thing was he voted in his own board. We're all delinquent. Secretary was quick claims a lot. We literally controlled Sudden Valley.
Can you speak more into the mic? We're getting.
Okay. Usually loud. Anyway, so again, it's not on passing or not passing. It's just there's history that we're concerned about. The ones that have been here, I've been here for 4.5 decades. And other things can happen too. It's not just collecting a bunch of lots, but if you have certain situations like floods that knock out every road to Sudden Valley, and you're going to have to come up with money, and you're going to have to vote on it, you may not be able to get the money from people who aren't, financially capable, but we've had that too. And then we got all assessed $400 per property, and that's when we had 4,500 properties. Given away 1,300 through consolidations and green belting, and that's costing us over $1 million in lost revenue every year for life of the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Like Steve would like to speak next.
Steve Workman, 1 Sandalwood. I'm also on the entity committee. We put this forward because in part of what happened with Wacoa. Never say that, right? You guys know what I'm talking about. I mean, it took the vote away from a lot of people. That was the one thing that people were still able to vote on if they were in it. And, you know, people are doing the best that they can with what they've got out here. And if we take away their voice, I mean, that's the whole reason I ran for entity, to make sure that every single person that actually has a property here is able to vote. And, you know, us trying to take that away from people or, you know, continue to keep that away from people just doesn't feel right. So that's why I went for it.
Thank you, Steve. Is there any more discussion? Yep, you can speak a second time. It looks like no one else is coming up.
Mike Wadsworth again, 5 Western Lane. In response to Chris's statement, my brain went blank. We are still paying for the mistakes that past boards made because past boards didn't have a future vision. We've hurt all the way down the line here by allowing properties to be linked together and not paying dues was absolutely stupid. There should have been a way to have that done where they were still producing for the community. And that's again, a mistake that past boards made because they had no vision for the future. And I want to thank this board for looking at things to look forward to what could happen rather than just making knee-jerk reactions and throwing money away. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Michael. Is there any other discussion on the matter? All right, I am not seeing any more discussion on the matter. So at this point in time, I'd like, if you are planning to vote from the floor at this moment, I would ask that you please fill out your ballot right now. This concludes the presentation and discussions of the measures that we're voting on. Some entity committee members will come around and gather any ballots being voted from the floor in the barn. Have a ballot that you're voting, please maybe just raise it in the air and Michael will come around and collect it. All right, it looks like, is there anyone on the floor with a ballot at this point? I am not seeing any moment. All right, moving forward, our committee report, we are getting the written reports put together. We will be publishing them to the website here for everybody to. So moving forward to the president's report, and then we'll do the treasurer's report after that. I'll just get my report from right here. I would like to start by thanking all the members of our community for making this a great place to live. Sun Valley is a beautiful area where natural beauty combines with recreation right in our backyard. There's so much to love about Sun Valley, from the shorelines to the mountainsides and everything in between. I do realize the politics can get somewhat charged here in the Valley, but it is obvious to me that everyone cares about this community we all call home. I want to take a moment to share some of the exciting work that is happening within our organization and the efforts by the board, staff, and many volunteers this past year to create real and lasting change for our community. So far this year, we have tried to facilitate a culture change within the association and made some required management level staffing changes. We have implemented a new strategic planning process, which involves the board, the long range planning committee, and our management team. We developed new mission and vision statements, along with core values and strategic priorities to help guide decisions of the board and staff for the betterment of the community. We increased accessibility to association meetings by live streaming all board and committee meetings to YouTube. We hired a consultant to assist the board in conducting an extensive nationwide search to find a highly skilled and qualified general manager for Sun Valley's future. We reacted swiftly to management issues from the interim GM by replacing them with the association's legal counsel to successfully negotiate Sun Valley Community Association's first ever collective bargaining agreement with the local Teamsters number 231 union. We drafted a budget in collaboration with our county manager, keeping operations stable while providing funding to repair neglected infrastructure. We collaborated with Whatcom County to implement a water quality treatment project to help reduce phosphorus loading into Lake Louise, which in turn runs into Lake Whatcom. We restructured several staff positions within the organization to bring in more specialized skill sets to better serve the community and provide stability to certain departments. We solicited engineering firms to assist the community in developing a new 10-year capital roads, drainage, and pedestrian improvement program. And we determined under the direct advice of the association's legal counsel to rescind the 2016 policy that created an additional 1/4 1% transfer fee based on the sale price of privately owned lots and homes within Sun Valley. In addition to ending the fee, the board is working with legal counsel to establish a program to return the portion of the fee that was collected inappropriately. We live in a beautiful community and have a tremendous team of employees who work hard to make our community a great place to live. I would like to thank our staff for their dedication and commitment to this place we call home. And just like to say, we're all very blessed to live in such a wonderful neighborhood. At this point in time, I'll pass it over to our treasurer, Kim Harris, for her report.
Hello again. I'm getting my steps in today on my step counter and jumping back up and forth from my chair to the desk here. But thank you again for listening, for your attendance and for listening. Regarding 2021 for Treasury and Finance, I'd like to say the board had a challenge this year because we were handed an unsustainable budget by an interim GM that we had at the time. And so on June 15th, the board ratified the executive committee decision to allow the treasurer, myself, to work with the audit committee to create an alternate budget proposal. The audit committee created a sustainable budget that incorporated the new strategic goals for long-term sustainability of our Sutton Valley community. This budget used a new community planning process through the work of the Long Range Planning Committee that gives our members a voice and allows the board to make data-driven decisions on the future of our community. And it connects to the new mission and vision statement and our strategic priorities. This past spring, Sutton Valley Management, the Board of Directors, and the Long Range Planning Committee collaborated to create the following mission, vision, and strategic priorities, which are used as guiding principles for our decisions. So during that strategic planning session, we created a mission, and our mission is to foster a livable and inclusive community through exceptional service, transparency, and responsible stewardship of our shared resources. The vision that we created on this committee was Sutton Valley as a sustainable and collaborative community where natural beauty, recreation, and civic engagement create a sense of belonging for our diverse membership. The strategic priorities that we identified during this process were sustainability, collaboration, natural beauty, recreation, civic engagement, quality of life, and diversity and inclusiveness. If all of those things sound like things that represent all of you, can you just raise your hand and show us that those things are acceptable to you? So I see, and you can raise your hand on Zoom as well. I just want to make sure that everyone feels that those values are reflected here. And I just want everyone to know that we use those values when we created this budget. And we created a budget that was balanced. It was not handed to us in deficit. So that is a priority for us. So with the absence of a full-time GM, coming out of a global pandemic, and working with Sutton Valley staff to negotiate with the new union, 2021 has been a very challenging year. But challenges are nothing but opportunities to work together and grow. This board has worked tirelessly with management to present this AGM and budget, and we hope that you supported our budget to take care of this community in a fiscally responsible way. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you, Kim. All right, we'll move on to the manager's report. John is going to share a screen with the slideshow that we have, but while he's working on that. In this year, we did have to terminate our employment relationship with the previous general manager. And in June of this year, the Sun Valley Board did not extend the interim general manager contract. With the board granting the executive committee the authority to oversee the management of the day-to-day operations. While I'm proud of the work that we have accomplished this year with the help and support of our management team and all of our staff, it has not come without challenges, but with challenges, opportunities reveal themselves. I'm happy to report that we have narrowed the GM search down to the final candidates, and we'll be arranging for those candidates to visit Sutton Valley. There will be additional interviews with the full board and with our management team. So I ask people to stay tuned for more information upcoming on that. And now we'll kind of get into, we had our managers put together highlights for their departments for the year. So I'm projecting. What? Give us 1 sec, please. Sorry, we're trying to get it set up on the sharing screen and also have a projection for the people in the dance barn. All right, so I'm going to run through the manager's reports here real fast. So for our accounting department, the 2022, I think the main highlight here is that the 2022 dues, there's no increase plan. We set a collection rate of 93% for our budget for 2022. And you can see that our year-to-date collection rates are passing that at the moment. So we feel like we will hit those targets hopefully next year, regarding, or as long as no additional things come with the COVID pandemic. And another key item here was that the PPP loan funds were fully forgiven this year in September. So for the golf enterprise, we surpassed the $1 million mark in revenue in September of this year. And Brian Kulak, our director of golf, projects that we're on pace to hit 1.1 million in revenue for the year, which would be about $150,000 above our annual budget revenue, which is really great. We have continued growth trends in our membership size and our revenue. They're up over 12% from last year. We're on track for our third consecutive year of operational profitability for the golf. Brian's made a big push with his team to get the outing revenue back up. COVID took a hit to some of that initially with large gatherings and things like that. But we've doubled our outing revenue from 2021, and we are working towards reaching the pre-COVID levels. We also secured a new sponsorship, and they successfully launched the 2021-2022 winter. And there's obviously been success at adapting to all the pandemic-related protocols and restrictions so we keep staff and customers safe and healthy. Our turf care department has successfully maintained our staffing levels throughout the season, even with the staffing difficulties throughout the country. We had some record-breaking heat this year during the summer, and we were able to keep the turf healthy, which results in a high playability of the course. It's important for bringing in outings and driving revenue through people's course. And they've continued the enhancement and playability of the Sun Valley golf course in order to view it as a destination to come play golf. For turf care and parks, we have successfully adjusted to new leadership, and we have adapted with changing COVID protocols over the year. We saw some record use of the parks during the heat, and the pandemic has kind of resulted in a lot more people doing outdoor activities. With the added use to turf on the golf course and our parks, the employees have had to adapt to those increased usage and adjust some of their procedures and processes. Our maintenance crew, some of the main responsibilities for the current maintenance crew are determining some of the Sun Valley owned property boundaries and dealing with hazard tree removal, ensuring definition of green spaces and seaways that are common use for the association, clearing ditches and culverts along with catch basins to keep our drainage system functioning. They deal with a lot of road sweeping, as everyone's probably seen over the last couple of months with all the wind that we've had. I love the fall time of year in Washington for that. And they deal with maintenance of our association infrastructure, like buildings and roads, drainage, all those. Some of the major accomplishments this year, they've been able to work more efficiently in regards to Firewise and the culvert vegetation control program to get more work done. They rebuilt ditches on a portion of Longshore that were not functioning properly. They accomplished some mitigation projects that had been put off for years to get those resolved with various permitting agencies for some past projects that were done in relation to culvert replacements. They executed several projects that were crucial to the operational functions of the maintenance department. We are currently also exploring options for the RV storage in order to increase some size and more efficient space to try to generate some additional revenue as a function of RV storage. Overall, The crew has established procedures for a more effective use of the department's resources, and they've really strived this year to build a positive team-oriented department, cooperating with others for the betterment of the community. That is the end of the slideshow. All right, that is the end of the manager's report. And we'll move on to property owner comments at this time. So property owner comments, please try to keep your comments limited to 3 minutes. We'll be alternating between speakers in person and those that are joining remotely. Those of you in person who wish to speak, please approach the microphone for recognition. Please state your name and your street address or division and lot number. For those attending virtually, members can indicate their desire to speak by using the raise hand feature. And participants will be recognized by John Carr, our IT specialist, and brought over to the panelists to speak. And remember to state your name and address. A summary of the topics and concerns raised will be an addendum to the minutes of the meeting. Remember that no business that was not in the notice of the annual meeting can be conducted. This is to protect the rights of the absentee who would have only been notified of the business through the notice provided in the mail. Yeah, we'll begin. Looks like Gail is at the microphone. And oh yeah, Zoom people, just please ask that you speak directly into the microphone so that they can hear.
Okay, I guess it's on and it's working. Good. Okay, this is actually going to be very short. Gail Chiarello, Division 16, Lot 40. As a member of the Finance Committee, I had come here today to express concern that last week's decision on the buyer's transfer fee had not come to Finance for discussion and a recommendation before the board vote. Today, President Tischletter assured me there will be opportunities going forward for communication and participation, and we welcome that, so thank you.
Not seeing any hands in Zoom at the moment, so Cheryl, please feel free to step to the podium.
Hello there, my name is Cheryl Taylor, 6 Caddy Lane. Change is sort of like childbirth. It's emotional, painful, but it happens. I've seen a lot of change in this community in the last 8 years. And I would like to extend a sincere thank you to the board that's here, the staff of SVCA, and all their hard work. John, specifically in IT, I really appreciate the fact that you have got these meetings online for people that can't physically be here. Thank you. For the first time, we see a balanced budget. First time in a long time, we see a balanced budget. Our recreational facilities won't be a burden to us. They're helping us, making our community better, and people are working together. For that, I'm very grateful. Thank you.
Thank you, Cheryl. Still seeing no hands raised in Zoom. Okay, we just did get one raised, so please hold Sonia, and we'll bring Rob over. John, can you please hop on?
Okay, Rob, I brought you over. Go and unmute.
Thank you. Rob Gibbs, 14 Far Summit Place. I have two questions. The first is when we have the finalists for the general manager, will there be an opportunity for the community to have a meet and greet with those finalists so we can ask our questions as well?
We have to have some conversations with our consultants regarding that. Some of them may have current employment and they may wish to not participate in such an event. So we will have to, confirm that with those candidates to make sure that would be something they'd be comfortable with.
Sure, that's understandable. I'm hoping that they would be agreeable to that. I think it'd be great for the community to have an opportunity to ask questions of them and meet them. My other question is, and maybe this is something that's too early. I know you're working out a process of refunding the transfer fees, but my understanding is some of the money in that account has already been spent. Will we have to move funds from any of the accounts in this 2022 from the 2022 budget? Will funds have to be moved from one account to pay back some of those other funds so that all the transfer fees can be refunded? I don't know if that question is clear, but thinking we may have to go get money from one of those other accounts.
Yeah, we're still working through all the details of that program and developing it. The action taken by the board at the last meeting was kind of the preliminary stages of doing that. And so some of those details will need to get worked out. But the likelihood that every last person requests a refund through the program is probably, not super likely. Some people have probably moved on and moved away and are not paying attention anymore. I would expect that maybe not all of the money ends up being refunded depending upon who applies for the refund. Some people have already stated that they would not necessarily want to provide a refund. We may look for a means of, putting, that money aside that people want kept for. Some people have expressed like an emergency fund or things like that. All that stuff would need to be developed and discussed by the board.
Okay, and do we know how much money has been taken from the transfer from the fund that was provided by the transfers? Like, is it more than 170? I'm sorry.
175,000.
Oh, I'm sorry. Who was speaking?
Oh, yeah.
Well, thank you, Sonia. Appreciate it. That's the questions I had. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob.
Thanks, Rob. I'll go ahead and move you back to the attendees now.
All right, I'll move to Sonia then at the podium.
I not quite sure why there's so much emotion attached with this. Wanting to return money that was taken inappropriately. So the fact remains, though, and I can appreciate Gail, especially because this particular finance committee, you guys you've been on this ride with us this year, and so it probably did. I can appreciate that you felt like maybe that you weren't included, but this is not fine. Some decisions, and you know that because you're a former board director, these are decisions that are legal matters, they're governance matters, and they have to do with our governing documents. So that's purely a board decision. But as AJ said, some of this process, there's more, we can develop more of a process. We have to do that hand in hand with our legal counsel to make sure that we don't misstep on all of this. But we will tell you guys everything we can. I've heard the word transparency kind of bantered around a lot. There is a difference between transparency and full disclosure. We are transparent. You guys knew as soon as the decision was made. That was not, something that was a big dark secret, but we cannot tell every single thing. That's why we go into closed session. And so what I hear is the previous board directors, primarily that were on that board in 2016 that implemented this transfer fee seem to be the ones that are most disturbed by this. And which I can appreciate that if but this is today. And our legal counsel, his loyalty is to this association and to the current board. So it's you can't go back and go, well, okay, somebody said we talked to an attorney. Well, the reality is our entire board talked to the attorney. It wasn't a document. It wasn't somebody said I talked to an attorney. The reality is that we've been walking this walk with our legal counsel. Sometimes, and again, you guys voted for this board to act as your representative, but there is a difference between transparency and full disclosure when we're talking about these types of matters. And so on this particular thing, we have to ask you guys to have some patience because it really did get implemented just last week. We have to determine what's the next best step, and we're going to have to do that, like I said, with the attorney. I just wanted to, second thing I want to say is we really appreciate this finance committee because I think a lot of people have no clue how much work has actually occurred this year. But we have had 2 reserve studies this year, 2 audits, 2 budgets. This is no little accomplishment. We did not realize that the previous board was working on, like when you do your budget, you use the reserve study for that year. We're working off of a year late reserve study, the dated reserve study, not accurate information. We've caught that up. Our audit, 1 year behind, we can't use it properly in the budgeting process with it being 1 year behind. So we've had to do 2 audits this year, catch up, so that we can do an audit next year in time for the budget process. So there's been a lot more work than I think people realize. And we're very grateful for our finance committee that we've had this year because they've done an awesome job. And so I just want to thank you guys. I want to thank Kim for being the treasurer. But I just also want to reassure you though, that even if we can't tell you everything, we really are committed to acting in the best interest of the association. And I appreciate all your support.
Right. Thanks, Sonia. I am not seeing any other hands in Zoom, so if you'd like to please use the podium.
Again, my name is Elizabeth Hufford. I live at 8 Westbrook Court, which is over by gate 13. It's nice that you all talk about quality of life here in Sudden Valley, but there is a section of the population here that is not served, is not even thought of, and that's the elderly and the handicapped. Over the last year and a half or whatever we've been in, those people have disappeared. If they're not computer literate, and most older people are not, they have not had a chance to listen to any of your board meetings or get any information. We are currently standing in a meeting room that if you are in a wheelchair or you are working with a walker, you cannot get through that door. That is the case in a lot of places here in Sudden Valley. The senior center was closed down a few years ago. So there is now no possibility of having any kind of senior lunch or food operation. There is no transportation for older people in Sudden Valley. There is just no thought being put to the elderly and the handicapped. And this past year and a half has been devastating. One of the most important things for seniors and for the handicapped is socialization, and that has been totally closed down. We need to work more on that segment of our population, because a lot of us are going to be getting there real soon. Thank you.
So there is one question on Zoom. It's if it's part of negotiation that the seller pay the transfer fee, now as a homeowner, can we request the refund? So the program that we developed, which is, you know, we still have work to do on that with our accounting staff and our legal counsel, but the initial, you know, premise would be that you would need to, we will put together some sort of form and request documents from those individuals that paid the fee, and they would need to be able to produce the documentation to show that they are the ones that in fact paid the fee and would be entitled to a refund of the fee. So I hope that helps answer your question. Go ahead, Chris.
And I go over my time, clock here. Okay, at the Zoom meeting that I went to and heard about the transfer fee being stopped, and then I found out after the meeting that it was actually going to be refunded. Kind of like stop it and then not get any more income, and take the money out of the accounts that we have and give it back to the people. And that's, like you say, the board's choice. Thank you, AJ, for the definition of the latecomer fee and how I had interpreted it. I only had one day to think about it, so I wasn't quite as prepared as some people. I also want to apologize to Steffi because I apparently ran over her time and I didn't understand the process, so I got frustrated. And I would wish she was here today so I could have personally done this. The next thing I'd like to say is that I think that Linda Bradley is a true asset to this community. She always has been. She's always had the knowledge. I think I know factually she's rubbed a whole bunch of board members the wrong way because she knows what she's talking about. It's not the way they used to do. So we'll leave it at that. I think that to go back over and kind of keep bashing past boards when a lot of people here haven't even been through a time when we had a past board, it's just been the one board, is probably not that appropriate or socially bringing us all together, if you know what I mean. In addition to that, I think the transfer fee, well, my question is the transfer fee legal that we have right now, is it legal? AJ. Using up my time, buddy.
You know, basically we've collaborated with ours and are working under the direct guidance of our legal counsel.
He says it's legal?
The transfer fee is, I'm not going to get into the details of it.
It just is.
The reality is like, if, you know, it does not benefit anybody.
Well, it benefit me, but that's okay. The next question I've got is how much have we totally collected? That should be an easy.
About 1.2.
$1.2 million. Okay. Remember the flood I talked about? Those are the days when we didn't have the money to spend like we do now. If we have so much money that we can give away $1 million, we're paying too high of dues. Okay. And because you're board, you can fix that. Okay. You can write another budget, could have done it this year, can do it next year. So you can control our future that way instead of giving away money that's sitting in there in an account as a cushion. Okay, so I'm out of time, but I would like to have a minute to continue. Thank you. I'll slow down a little bit. Okay, I truly do, and I've been here. I contributed my efforts, my time, my family's been here, raised 4 kids here, 45 years or so. Love the place. Everybody thinks it's a nice place. It is, but it hasn't always been. We're probably in the best financial position than we've been in years, but looking forward, we've got a lot of things that we're going to have to maintain and update and things like that, and we're going to need the money. And it's going to be more expensive than it was 2 years ago because of the inflationary factors that we are dealing with. And I just don't think that it's in the members' best interest financially to refund money that they were told was going to be used for whatever reason, if it's legal to do it. Because if it's legal, then our membership should make the choice. All those mistakes that those board members before made, members voted those mistakes in. Okay, they voted on those things. So there's a lot of people, I'm probably one of them because I've been out there, that made a mistake. Also, well, I think I've probably, I don't want to.
I'll just say this, like we've been working under the direct guidance of our legal counsel, and I have no authority to waive our attorney-client privilege standing right here at this moment. I don't have that authority.
I'll be asking the question.
Member.
Yeah, I'll be asking the question again because I think it's valid to know. Because I'll tell you, if it's illegal, get rid of it. Give all the money, all of the money back. But if it's legal, it should be a choice. Membership makes.
And we also believe that the membership should make the decision on whether we should have such a fee or not.
Good, let's do that. Thank you.
So hold on one second, just real quick. There's a few, I just kind of, some people have made some comments in the chat on Zoom. So I just want to make sure because people here can't see that obviously. So there are a number of people who have expressed, 2 individuals have expressed similar comments to providing sorry, I'm trying to pull this up here. Helping with disabled or elderly people and being able to access buildings, property. All right, thank you for those Zoom comments, and I'll pass it over to Ann here at the podium.
A couple points that Chris said that most people in this room only dealt with this board. How many people dealt with other boards in this room? That wasn't right. I'd also like to point out concerning the transfer fee, your complaint last week was, well, you said originally you were against it. You thought it would impact sales. So a very good friend of mine made a very good point today. You were against it when it was going to affect your sales, but you're for it now because it didn't. Sounds like the point. Thank you.
All right, I don't have any Zoom hands at the moment, so Sonia, go ahead.
I also just wanted to address.
Make sure please talk into the mic.
Sorry, I just wanted to address some of that also. Yeah, as AJ was stating, this falls under a closed session matters, and so kind of inappropriate to push the board president to make a statement like that that could have major implications financially on this association, and you know that, Chris. Again, this has the potential to impact this association substantially. This decision was not made lightly, but it was made in the best interest of this association in conjunction with our attorney. That pretty much tells you everything right there. That being said, this fee was actually implemented. In 2016, the board that implemented it proposed this, sent out documentation to bankers, realtors, title companies, stating that this fee was being brought in to augment the revitalization plan. In conjunction, there was a plan to revitalize the red corridor, the marina, and it would have implemented a $14 to $18 million special assessment. The community members voted against it. So a transfer fee was implemented to augment something the community voted against. The way our reserves work legally is we have a contractual obligation with membership to only use those reserves for what you paid them for. So when we take your SURF money, we spend it for that capital repair and replacement project. We take your money and put it into roads. We can only spend that on everything that is called roads. That's our agreement with you. You pay, that's what we do. We spend it on that. Until we spend it, it's a liability for us. All of those accounts, until we actually spend it, those are obligated funds and they're a liability. The fact is, you're talking about a transfer fee that was taken in to augment something the members voted against. So if the community wants an additional fee like that for transfer, we will need to amend our bylaws. That's not going to happen today. So meanwhile, we have a responsibility to take right action. That's what's occurred. Now, that's not to say that we can't do it. But I want to be real clear, those funds were not emergency funds. They came in to implement a plan that the members rejected. We do have emergency funds, by the way. We have a UDR account, we have emergency operations account. And Chris was right, our reserves are better than they've ever been. This will not impact us. It's 1.1 million. The board waived last April, 1 month of dues that equated $447,000. That's half of what this transfer fee is. If it was a real concern that it was going to impact us financially, that was really a bad decision. So this capital account was not part of our budgeting for 2022. It won't have any impact on our budget for 2023. Thank you.
One sec, Chris. I'm gonna bounce to the Zoom candidate. John, can you go ahead and bring that raised hand over?
Yeah, it looks like we've got May. May, go ahead and bring you over to the meeting. And
Hi, from Q is Tierlin here, and I just would like to share my thoughts about the fee. I agree that there's a lot of things that Sutton Valley can use that money for improvement, to help our elderly, to help our children in this community. The problem I have so far is that money seems like has been used or non-used for something with purposefully for all residents here. I feel like most of the money have developed the main area, make it look really nice, but then the rest of us just live in the dark. So I guess either way, refund or not refund, it's fine to me. If it's not refund to our whoever already paid for it, I would like to have those money used wisely that support our community. And the second part on that is that we've paid the fees, but some amenity like beaches here, sometimes we can't use it because people from outside come in and use it, and we just don't have the place to park, or we don't have the place for us when we the one who pay the fee, right? So can we use that money to somehow, we need to plan so that we as residents in Sutton Valley have more right to use those amenity on those really hot days, for instance. So whether these board or the next one, whoever, whenever you have the project that uses money, we would like to have the right to vote on, or at least notify what's going on. which so far I seem like these board have done really well on that. Thank you.
Thank you.
All
All
right.
right, go ahead, Chris.
The last comment made about me seems like a Facebook gaffe, standing behind your computer and saying an unnamed person said such and such. The person who made the comment doesn't know me, probably doesn't know me, hasn't had a personal conversation with me, don't know anything about my finances, doesn't realize that the two things that are most important to me in this community is the community members' psychological well-being, okay, which has been not very good because of the pandemic and other things that have gone on. And secondly, their financial well-being. Now, is that a selfish thing that to want you and you and you and you get the fair market value out of your property? Matter of fact, if you look at my statistics, as a listing agent, I get more out of my property because I know how to negotiate, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and prepare a house for sale than the average realtor. Now, does that benefit me? Yes, it does. I can make a commission. You got your house sold. That's what happens. That's around the United States. An ethical business that I am very proud to be a part of. I don't like being misinterpreted where I'm coming from. And for a personal thing, I'll let you know that my retirement is this community. My investments are 70%, 60, 70% in this community. My dues of thousands and thousands of dollars a year go back into this community. I disagree with as many boards as I agree with. Linda Bradley can tell you, she's seen it when I've been told to sit down, shut up. There's been other colorful words, not necessarily in board meetings, but I do have a belief in what is best for the membership as a whole, not as a section. I've even come up across the, in years ago, the golf course, the golf club. I didn't think that it was set up the way it should have been. We could have gotten more business, and now Brian is getting us more business. So obviously we could have got more business. So if there's questions in this room or in this audience or anywhere else, call me direct. Don't go gossiping and the rest of it. It's just not productive.
Chris. I'm not seeing any hands on Zoom, so go ahead, Cheryl.
Excuse me, Cheryl Taylor, Study Lane. I would like to encourage the people that have expressed concerns about the facilities, support for the less capable or disabled or whatever the politically appropriate word is for that. I apologize, but I would encourage people to get involved or submit your concerns to the Long Range Planning Committee. They are looking at how to move things forward. And if that is something that this community needs, then by all means, make that need known. And the committee will take the time to look at how to best do that for the community. But that's the best place to get that particular need known.
Thank you, Cheryl. Still no Zoom hands, so please go ahead and speak.
Okay, this is my third time, which I'm not supposed to do, but Elizabeth Huthard, 8 Westbrook Court. I have gotten the feeling through this meeting that the current board thinks everything is hunky-dory and sudden death. And that's not the case. We have lost so many amenities over the years. And I feel that there is a lack of planning on how to replace those amenities. And I have a feeling that there is a lack of outreach to the people in the valley, sending out a flyer or a questionnaire is not the way you reach the residents of Sudden Valley. And another thing I am saddened about is the lack of volunteers now. We didn't even have enough people to fill the number of board vacancies. I think the board needs to take a serious look at how they're relating to Sudden Valley's residents. Thank you.
Still no Zoom hands, so go ahead, Josh.
It's so weird. It's like being in court or
Speak
something.
into the mic.
Joshua Bowen, 17 Lane. I believe some people are referring to me as 2018 780, which is kind of weird. It almost reminds me of that show, The Prisoner. You guys remember that one with Patrick McGowan? I'm a name, not a number. But anyways, hope everyone's doing fantastic. It's really cool seeing everyone in here, especially people I agree with and the people I don't agree with. But I just wanted to remind everyone that we have a holiday craft fair next Saturday, November 13th. I believe it's from 10 to 3. Is it 10 to 3, Trang? Okay, so 10 to 3, you guys should come out. There's going to be some awesome stuff. I know there's going to be some great soap, paintings, and all that kind of good thing. So yeah, thank you.
All right. Still no Zoom hands, so go ahead, Kim.
Again, Kim Harris Treasurer, Division 10, Lot 200. So, just in response to Elizabeth, I wanted to just say, I appreciate you being here and speaking and sharing your opinion. And if you're getting the sense that this board thinks everything's great, I just want to say, I think you're mistaken. I don't think the current board thinks everything is great. I think the current board is working very diligently to transform the culture of what was going on and in our staffing, previous employees, and that is a very difficult position to be in. If we have any people here that were in the Navy and working on ships, I'm going to use the analogy that it's like turning a ship around. Doesn't happen quickly, and it takes time and a lot of energy and effort. Our last board meeting was 4.5 hours. We are all volunteers. We have put in those time after a long day of work. And as a matter of fact, I got up late the next day for work and had 20 minutes to get dressed and get out of the house. We are hardworking. We are committed. We do not think everything is perfect. Certain things you brought up, like lack of people running, that concerns us too. And a lot of it matters of a survey. We're talking about being in the middle of a 100-year global pandemic. So I too am disappointed as a social person, as someone who's very outgoing. I don't like the fact that things were done online. I have compassion for people, the elderly that could not access a lot of our meetings, but by governor's law, that was what we were required to do at the time. We could not break our state laws in order to have in-person meetings. So we did the best we could with the tools we had. And today you've seen a huge effort to have a hybrid meeting so that people can come and be in person and also people can be online. So we're making every effort to do things the best that we can based on the constraints that we have of laws, state laws, bylaws, everything within reason based on all of our constraints. But no, we don't think things are great, but we are working in that direction. So hope everyone sees all of our efforts and energy and continue to support us with patience, and what we need is trust. Thank you.
Thanks, Kim. Still no Zoom hands, so go ahead, Michael.
Michael Wadsworth, 5 Western Lane. Yeah, I want to pitch a thought that we are in not the best standings here. I mean, there's things, I agree with what you said, there's amenities here that I'd like to see picked back up. I'd really like to see the pool covered so you could use it year round. But at any rate, there's a lot of opinions. There's a lot of conversation on Facebook. There's a lot of thoughts out there, but there's not a lot of step up and you be the change. If you want to see change here and you want to see growth, step up, sign on the line, get on a committee, run for the board. This was one of the saddest elections I've seen here in the 7 years that I've been here. Not even enough people to properly compete for a board position. We're shorthanded on N&E committee. We're shorthanded on all the committees. If you want to see something, be involved. This is your home. This is your community. Step up. Other people have done it. It's your turn if you haven't done it before. I'd also like to thank Linda. This is her last year being here. She's the wizard of Sudden Valley. If you want to know something, ask her. She knows. She knows the history and she knows the past. And you learn your mistakes. You learn from your mistakes in the past so you don't commit them again. We need people like her around, and I just want to applaud her for her job.
President, there's a question Q&A.
So there's a question in the Q&A about the future status of some of the ad hoc committees. This one relates to parks, trails, and recreation, and will it be reinstated? So the chair of that committee did resign from the board the past year and not have anyone that can chair and run that committee. It will be the following year's board to have discussions and determine what ad hoc committees they would create to help support the board and the organization. So I'd just like to make a comment as a property owner, AJ Tischletter, 2 Cedar Place. Just kind of wanted to speak to what Elizabeth said here, you know, and reiterate some of the stuff that Kim said. Like, you know, I don't think the board thinks everything is hunky dory. In fact, some of the things that have had to take place this year, I never actually dreamed I would be the one responsible for executing the actions of things that took place. I never thought it would take the amount of time and effort that it has this year. Lots of sacrifices have been made. I'd like to thank my wife and my family for that because they've been the ones that have sacrificed the most over all that. But, you know, I think communication is something key. And I think it's something that this next year's board needs, you know, that we'd like to strive both internally and externally to do a better job with. I think we've made good strides in that regard. You know, I don't think this survey is a great start for, you know, getting input from the community. And it is a means for a lot of people to be able to give that input. But I think there are other methods too that we could incorporate into that as well. And I think, you know, I'd love to, you know, one of the things that we're focused on is, you know, making sure we don't lose any more assets, that we don't need to spend millions and millions of dollars replacing buildings, and that we maintain the things that we have. I'd love to see some ADA improvements to better serve those people who need that in our community. You know, we do have plans in this rec corridor for refurbishing the exterior of this barn, so we can solidify that to ensure that its future as a historical structure in Sun Valley is maintained, and through that process, we can certainly look at some ADA improvements that we can make in that regard. You know, and I think, you know, establishing and reinvigorating some of the amenities we have, like the ice barn, would be an excellent place to host farmers markets and flea markets, and have covered recreation area for our incessantly long rainy season that we experience here. And, you know, I think we put together a very robust capital plan for next year that we are, you know, really looking forward to digging into with the new general manager that gets brought on board. You know, and there's still a lot of work to do. And I think, you know, I just, not everything is perfect, but we are doing our best to try to, you know, deal with some of the situations that arose this year and try to make things better. And, you know, something Kim pointed out in her treasurer's report, and I also stated, you know, while there are challenges this year, challenges reveal opportunities and also reveal areas for improvement. And so. We have any other property owner comments? Another one coming?
Leave 1 Sandalwood Circle. There was a comment made earlier online, which was something that I was under the misconception of, and I figured since we're listening and whatnot, might be a good idea to approach it. We don't have private parks. We don't have private beaches. We restructured years ago, had something to do with a tax issue. I don't know all the details. I don't remember all the details, but we're not a 501c3, which means we don't actually have private parks, which means the Whatcom County can use our beaches. So even if we were to try and take funds to address that, we can't.
Thank you. Anybody else? Speak? Right, hearing none, we will move on to the announcement. All right, I just gotta let the projector warm up here real quick. John, are you gonna share this on the screen then? And I'll share it on mine or on the projector. All right, we'll let that warm up here for a sec. All right, so the representatives of the Nominations and Election Committee have presented the uncertified election results to us. I have it projected off of my laptop on the screen back there for the people here, and John is sharing his screen for those that are in the Zoom meeting. For the positions of the Board of Directors, the candidates that applied received the following number of votes. We have Jaime Van de Polder. Sorry if I pronounced that wrong. I do also have a difficult name. Got 501 votes. Samuel Shahan had 555 votes, and Sonia Volt had 505 votes. The fourth vacancy that did not get filled will be appointed by the Board of Directors, and we will begin that process probably at our first board meeting next week with the new and I would like to congratulate Sonia, Sam, and Taimi, and thank them for stepping up to be on the Board of Directors. All right, moving on to measure number, oh, sorry. So there were no candidates for NNE or ACC. And we will be soliciting for interested candidates to be appointed to those committees to serve for just the 2022 year. If you're interested, you can fill out an application. And the committee chair will be in touch with you once they begin that process. And there are 2 NNE positions open and 8 ACC. So for measure number 1, which is the annual consolidated budget proposal, there were 642 votes in favor of measure number 1 and 173 rejected. Since there's less than a majority of total owners rejecting the budget is approved. For measure number 2, the bylaw amendment to prevent unnecessary and unenforceable special meetings. There were 608 votes for, 201 votes against, which is 75.15% people for the measure, which meets our bylaws total of 2/3 requirement for bylaw amendments to pass, which means that this bylaw amendment has passed. For measure number 3, there were 544 votes for, 277 votes against. That is 66.26% of the voters voting for the budget, for the bylaw amendment, which falls short of the 2/3 requirement in our bylaws, which means that this amendment failed. For bylaw amendment number 4, there was 593 for, 230 against. That is 72.05% for the bylaw amendment, which meets our 2/3 requirement in our bylaws to amend them, and this bylaw amendment passes. For measure number 5, there was 651 for and 162 against, which is 80.07% in favor of the bylaw amendment, which meets the requirements of 2/3 in our bylaws, and this amendment passed. Measure number 6, there was 453 votes for, 372 against, which is 54.91% of the votes for, which does not meet our 2/3 requirement in our bylaws to amend them, and this measure failed. So there was a total of 812 mail-in ballots and 26 in-person. No proxies were filed this year, and there were no budget only. So moving forward, that is all of the measures and the uncertified election results. The certified election results will be at the board meeting upcoming. I just have a couple announcements. The NNE committee will be selecting their chair immediately following this meeting here. And then the board immediately after that will be having its organizational meeting to select the executives of the new board once the NNE is done. I also have an announcement to make to the community as well. We are currently working with El Agave and the restaurant and the clubhouse. We deal with some repair issues that need to happen as a result to some as a result of some plumbing stuff. And so we are planning a tentative shutdown of the El Agave kitchen, which would impact the availability of the restaurant. To deal with some of this, we are working with El Agave and planning on or around about December 1st to deal with this. We have to, at this moment in time, we're not totally certain of the impacts that will be resulting. And we do have to do some tear out before we can know exactly what the time frame for repair is going to be. And so we do ask for a little patience in regard to that, but the repairs have been neglected for a number of years and kind of patched over. And at this point in time, they need to be dealt with comprehensively. We are working with Cruz and El Agave to figure out some solutions on how we may be able to still serve food. Maybe, we're discussing potentially maybe the food truck or something along those lines to be able to continue to provide services. And we will get some more information to the community as we continue those discussions with El Agave and make some final determinations on that. At this point in time, the business of the annual meeting has been completed and the meeting is adjourned. Thank you all for coming.